Fear of rejection is something almost everyone experiences at some point in their lives. It creeps in quietly, affecting your choices, shaping your relationships, and even influencing your self-esteem. But have you ever paused to consider why rejection feels so intensely painful, almost as if it's a threat to your very existence? The truth is, much of this fear has its roots deep in your childhood. The way you were treated as a child, the experiences you had, and the emotional environment around you all play a significant role in how you perceive yourself and how vulnerable you feel to rejection as an adult. Understanding this connection is not only fascinating, it can be transformative. When we are children, our brains are incredibly malleable. We are constantly observing, absorbing, and internalizing cues from our environment. One of the most important lessons we learn is how others respond to us. Children rely on the reactions of parents, caregivers, teachers, and peers to understand whether they are safe, worthy, and loved. If a child consistently experiences criticism, neglect, or conditional approval, it sends a strong message. You are only valuable if you meet certain standards. Even subtle cues, like a parent's sigh, a teacher's disappointed look, or peers excluding you from games, can teach the brain to associate personal worth with acceptance. This is the beginning of the pattern that leads to a fear of rejection later in life. Children who grow up in environments where approval is inconsistent may develop what psychologists call attachment anxiety. This is a state where the individual becomes hyper-aware of how others perceive them. They might constantly seek reassurance, avoid taking risks, or feel intense anxiety when facing the possibility of being judged or rejected. Imagine a child who receives love and praise only when they get perfect grades or excel in sports. That child learns that love and acceptance are earned, not freely given. Later, as an adult, this internalized belief can manifest as a paralyzing fear of rejection, making it difficult to pursue relationships, careers, or personal goals. Even seemingly minor childhood experiences can leave a lasting impact. Being excluded from a birthday party, teased by classmates, or overlooked by teachers might feel trivial at the time, but repeated patterns of exclusion accumulate. The brain, especially in childhood, is wired to prioritize social survival. In prehistoric times, being rejected by the tribe could mean actual physical danger, so the brain treats rejection as a threat to life. Today, while rejection rarely has life or death consequences, our brain reacts as if it does. That is why even a small critique at work or perceived slight from a friend can trigger an intense emotional response, because your nervous system remembers those early lessons that rejection is dangerous. Parental influence is perhaps the most powerful factor in shaping how we experience rejection. Parents who are critical, emotionally unavailable, or inconsistent in their affection often leave children feeling insecure. A child might grow up thinking, if I make a mistake, I will be abandoned, or I must always be perfect to be loved. Conversely, overprotective parenting, where a child is shielded from any form of failure or disappointment, can also be detrimental. When children are never allowed to face small rejections, they never learn how to cope with them. The adult brain then lacks the tools to handle rejection gracefully, making even minor setbacks feel catastrophic. Another significant factor is childhood trauma. Experiencing bullying, abuse, or neglect teaches the brain to anticipate pain in social interactions. Trauma heightens sensitivity to social cues, making adults hypervigilant about how others perceive them. They may constantly second-guess themselves or avoid situations where they fear rejection. This hyper-awareness is a survival mechanism that was useful in childhood, but often becomes a hindrance in adult life. Understanding that this response has roots in survival rather than personal flaw is a key step toward healing. Cultural and societal influences also play a role in amplifying rejection sensitivity. In some cultures, children are socialized to prioritize harmony and approval from others, teaching them early that their value is linked to acceptance. In competitive environments, whether at school, in sports, or in social circles, children may learn to fear rejection as a measure of their competence and self-worth. This layered experience creates adults who are particularly sensitive to criticism, social exclusion, or failure, carrying the emotional residue of childhood lessons into every new encounter. The interesting thing about fear of rejection is that it is not only about other people, it is also about how you view yourself. Many childhood experiences implant limiting beliefs that become internalized as self-criticism. A child who is repeatedly told they are lazy, unworthy, or not smart enough internalizes these judgments. Later, even when external validation is positive, the internal critic can dominate, making rejection feel inevitable and unbearable. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing. Fear of rejection leads to avoidance or people-pleasing behaviors, which in turn reduces opportunities for genuine connection and success, confirming the fear. Despite the power of these childhood influences, it is crucial to recognize that fear of rejection is not a permanent sentence. Awareness is a first step toward change. By reflecting on your childhood experiences, you can begin to trace the origins of your fear and recognize the patterns that continue to shape your behavior. Journaling, therapy, or deep self-reflection can help uncover the moments and messages that contributed to your current fear of rejection. Once identified, these experiences can be reframed and healed, freeing you to engage with life more authentically. Another powerful tool is cultivating self-compassion. Many adults carry forward the harsh inner voice of their childhood critics. Practicing kindness toward yourself can counteract this internalized negativity. For example, when you face rejection at work or in relationships, instead of interpreting it as proof of inadequacy, try to remind yourself, I am worthy regardless of external approval. This shift in perspective retrains your brain, helping to reduce the emotional intensity of rejection over time. Learning to tolerate and even embrace rejection is also essential. Childhood experiences often teach us that rejection is catastrophic, but adulthood provides opportunities to challenge that belief. Taking small risks, exposing yourself to situations where you might face rejection, and gradually desensitizing yourself to the fear can build resilience. Over time, you may realize that rejection, while uncomfortable, is rarely fatal and can even be a source of growth and learning. Relationships, too, are a mirror for this healing process. Choosing supportive friends, partners, and colleagues who provide consistent encouragement rather than conditional approval can help rewrite the old scripts from childhood. When you experience acceptance in a healthy adult context, it strengthens your sense of worth, teaching your brain that you are inherently valuable, independent of performance or compliance. It is important to remember that fear of rejection does not indicate weakness. It is a natural human response deeply embedded in survival mechanisms, emotional learning, and social conditioning. The difference lies in whether you allow that fear to dictate your choices or whether you consciously work to understand and manage it. By connecting the dots between your childhood experiences and your present emotional patterns, you reclaim agency over your life. You begin to recognize that rejection is not a judgment of your intrinsic worth, but merely a reflection of circumstances, preferences, or differing perspectives. Healing from childhood-based fear of rejection is a journey, not a one-time fix. It involves patience, self-awareness, and practice. It might mean revisiting painful memories, challenging ingrained beliefs, and experimenting with new behaviors. But the reward is profound. A life where you can take risks, form authentic connections, pursue your passions, and embrace opportunities without the paralyzing fear of being turned away or judged. In the end, understanding that your childhood shapes your fear of rejection is empowering. It does not make you a victim of your past. It equips you with insight. Insight allows you to consciously choose how to respond to situations that once triggered anxiety. You learn to separate the past from the present, to distinguish between old survival responses and current reality. And in doing so, you cultivate resilience, self-confidence, and a richer, more fulfilling life. So the next time you feel a familiar twinge of fear, when facing possible rejection, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, is this fear coming from the present moment, or is it a leftover echo from my childhood? Recognizing the source gives you the power to respond differently. With time, awareness, and self-compassion, you can transform fear into courage, hesitation into action, and old wounds into lessons that fuel growth. Childhood may have shaped your fear of rejection, but your adulthood gives you the tools to overcome it.